When most times something happens in a country, um, people expect a lot of things to change. You know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, two and a half years ago, a lot of things happened. A lot of things changed, and not just in Russia and Ukraine, but across the globe. You know, it turned out Russia was one of the biggest suppliers of energy throughout Europe. Ukraine biggest supplies of I don't know, grain or maize or something. So it affected a lot of people, you know. And but this thing that just happened, it seems on a certain level it's not affecting, or it doesn't have the same impact as it should. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the show. You're listening to Talk It Up podcast with me, Ushindi, as your host. And what's the talk? What's the chat? Let's get into it. So, earlier this year, back in March to be precise, the Ugandan parliament and the members of parliament suggested an anti-gay bill, and this bill was sent to the president of Uganda, Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, a couple of times, and he rejected the bill, saying it was too harsh or even too soft. So he wanted the bill to be changed. However, if the bill got changed or sent three times to the parliament, the members of parliament were going to pass this bill either way without his opinion. So in June, he finally agreed to what was proposed in the bill, and the bill was passed, and it is now a law. By June 1st, 2023, the anti-gay bill was a law. It came out in the economics, and was saying that Uganda's harsh anti-gay bill is now law, part of a culture war in Africa that has ties to the West. So basically, one of many reasons why many countries in Africa, not just Uganda, by the way, which we're going to about later on, not just Uganda, a lot of African countries have come out to have their own types of bills that are similar to the Ugandan anti-gay bill. And it's scary. It really is, you know. So then a lot of nations, a lot of people were on the internet saying Uganda might start losing support from Western countries and all those sort of things. So the president went on saying he wasn't moved by threats to cut aid from Western countries over anti-gay laws. He also said if they cut aid, we shall sit down and discipline our expenditure, rearrange our budgets. If they interfere with our trade, we shall trade with others. So basically, he is not threatened. You can you can call him the next Putin. I don't know, because basically this is what Putin was saying by the beginning of the war, that he wasn't really scared about, you know, the U.S. or anyone who's trying to threaten him. And then a lot of people were online applauding the president and the government for what they had done. Someone went on congratulating him. They normally call him Sebo, which is Sir in Luganda. One of showing respect. And then one went on saying Africa must resist the imposition of uncouth ideologies into our cultures. We must protect our families and children. Man, seems like a lot of people were behind this bill, and they were waiting so much. They were so eagerly waiting for the bill to be passed. And someone said, hashtag better Uganda, I stand with Uganda. It's like, you know, and I have been sitting here thinking, is this really the way forward? Because in my opinion, the 21st century, if we're still thinking that, I don't know, look, I have been on the side of this. I have been on the other side where I feel like, and I'm not speaking as a black person, I'm speaking as an African. I am not just a black person, I'm African, which means I've been on the side of the wall where I thought white people always want black people or Africans to adapt to to their cultures, to their norms and things like that. But as I've grown, I realize no, people just want something, and when they don't get it in time, but yet they see it somewhere, they're going to take it and adopt it. This goes back to the same thing we were discussing last week. Uh, Influencers, they never set beauty standards. People wanted these things. They didn't know how to do them. They didn't know how to get them. Maybe they were, but they were afraid. So influencers come in. They have the power. They create these things, and people buy them. So and then it was a lot. But then there were also students from 13 different universities in the United States who were storming the streets to protest over the threats made by U.S. President Joe Biden to impose sanctions on Uganda. These were Ugandan students in the United States protesting because Biden had proposed sanctions on the country, you know. So it became a whole weird, crazy thing. I don't know if calling it weird is the right thing, or weird or crazy is the right thing. I don't know, but it's very controversial. It's a heated up, uh, I don't know, heated up conversation topic, which everyone is just so emotional, and everyone just wants to, have their voice heard on this. And then it kept going, it kept growing, because in the same month, in June, back in Cape Town, there was a convention, or a meeting, or something, and a renowned Professor Patrick Lodge Otilo Lumumba was denied to enter the conference or anything, because he was in support of the anti-gay bill that was proposed in Uganda, and for many, he is a very strong homophobic. As a politician, he has been very open in his tweets, in his speeches, how he feels about the LGBTQ community, and if I don't know, it's a lot. It gives me a headache most times, and I try my best uh, not to, I don't know, to be there all the time, because it makes me sick, kind of, seeing that in this time, this is the level where we at, that we can't sit down and have a conversation on how to solve issues, but rather, anyway. But the thing is, the issue with the bill is that, or the law. Let me just call it the law now, because it's in their laws. The issue that I have most, that is having me scratch my head the most, is that this bill, especially the one in Uganda, has it sends people to jail. It has a death sentence, and it can send you for a lifetime in jail. And that's just crazy, people. That is absolutely insane. Speaking as an African, speaking as a black person, it is insane that people are getting arrested or possibly going to be executed for, being different, for choosing to be different. That is totally insane. It's the 21st century, for God's sake. But anyway, so like I said, this thing is still growing. It's still going on the African continent, and back in I think last 2 months, the parliament in Ghana, they backed a proposed amendment to an anti-gay bill that would make identifying as LGBT punishable by a 3-year prison sentence. People who campaign for LGBT rights could now also face up to 10 years in jail. Oh my God. That is just insane, people. It is insane. And I can't even get myself to put it out there how I feel about these things. You know, I can't, because it's not just too heavy. Forget about this being a heavy topic, heavy conversation for Africans. Now, don't get me wrong. As an African, I have grown up to feel like there is need to protect the Africanism in us. That being where we're from, who we are, who we've been over the years, and everything that we hold dear, our cultures, our norms. I have been pro all these things, but that did not prevent me from, you know, evolving as a person and adapting to so many different things. That did not. And so when I see things like these, I don't. I feel like the one question that always comes to my head is that, is it because we have old folks running these countries, or what exactly do we need to make them see that, hey, there is nothing wrong for someone wanting to be this, totally nothing wrong. And you know what's crazy is that, if I remember correctly, back in the days, like way when I was very young, I'm pretty sure I could remember people identifying or naming others as gay and lesbians and things like that before any of this was even quote unquote trending. You know, I'm pretty sure I can remember those days. I remember people calling others names that, if you look into those names back then and you put it in today's world, you would see that they were putting these people in a category, in a bracket of the LGBTQ community, and some people were identifying as part of the community way before it was, I don't know. Um, but the president in Rwanda, President Kagame, is the one that actually makes this very interesting, because for him, he says, well, not actually him alone. I've heard the president Museveni of Uganda say it several times. If you're part of something, just keep it to yourself. We don't need to see you running around with signs and, things like that, trying to tell us who you are. They've said this many times, and I think maybe that's what they have. Like, maybe that's where they have a problem with all this, that someone is, trying to push, quote unquote, an agenda, because I don't see what kind of an agenda this is. But also, recently a friend of mine did send me a video where some people back in the United States, I don't know how I never saw this video, but some guys went on the streets and they were chanting, "We're coming, here we come for your children." And in my opinion, I think this was back when there were conspiracies that the LGBTQ community is trying to recruit children and brainwash them and try to put them part of the LGBTQ community. And I have to say, come on, you can't make a dramatic situation even more dramatic. No, no, no. You can't. I mean, they say sometimes when you have to put out a fire, you set up small fires, but I don't think in the real world that actually works. When you heat up an already heated up situation, we don't get to sit that out. We can't, you know. So I think what most of African people have as an issue with all this is that they don't want it to be published. They don't want it. They don't want someone being out there embracing this publicly and be like, "Hey, I'm gay. Hey, I'm lesbian. Hey, I'm trans. Hey, I'm gender neutral." I don't. I think this is what they don't want. But again, everything is almost made public today. It's almost like everyone can be out there and talk about who they are, what they are publicly, and they're okay with it. So why not just let everyone just do that? You know? So it's a very heated conversation. It's a very heated topic. I know some of my friends who were happy about the bill because they were like, "Oh, this was getting exhausting, man. They're teaching us in school. They're telling us these things. We're not even interested, you know." So at some point, I look at it and I'm like, I don't know, man. And then you have countries like the United States putting sanctions on countries with such bills, and I have to wonder, like, were they right to actually put up the bills? Because why else would you put a sanction on a nation that wants to keep, uh, quote unquote, its people safe? Why would you put a sanction on a nation that is just trying to preserve who they've been for centuries of years? It At some point it doesn't make sense to me. You know, they keep bringing up human rights violations. They keep bringing up uh, people not having the freedom of speech and expression. But again, uh, the sanctions, aren't you really just not wanting to listen to the leaders? Because when you put up a sanction, you're basically saying, okay, fine, you don't want to do this to me. I'm not going to do this. So tit for tat, you know. So it's very, like I said, a very controversial topic, a very heated up conversation, a very complicated situation because you don't know who is right, who is wrong. It's ups and downs. So again, I look at these bills, and I feel like no, they shouldn't be there. There could be a better way to do this. There could be a better way to address these situations. These bills are not the solution, not at all. You know, and I look at people's reaction, how they're celebrating their governments for introducing such bills, and how they're happy that they have these bills, and then you're like, so this is a democracy because people are celebrating this. It's not a dictatorship that people are fighting this. Of course, there are people who are fighting this, but to see that there are people who are celebrating this, I don't know. I don't know how you call that a dictatorship because people spoke. I mean, people didn't suggest the bill to be put up as a law, but people have spoken at the end of the day. So it in my it on if you ask me, it's all still hanging up in the air. I'm trying to put pieces together. I'm trying to see how I can fit in all this as an African, and I don't see how I fit in. I don't like the bills. I don't support them. I love my people. I love my presidents. I've been openly speaking, saying President Museveni, Kagame, they're one of my favorite presidents on the African continent. But not when it comes to this. Of course, no one is perfect. Everyone has their own flaws, and someday I'm pretty sure I'm going to be held accountable for these words. But again, I stand on my word saying I don't like these bills. As much as, they try to make them look like they can justify them, I don't like them. I think they're way over the line. You don't arrest someone for being different. You don't give someone a death sentence just because they choose to be different. You don't do that. We're not God. Literally, countries that believe in God so much, they always quote on him many times. You don't do that. If it's judgment, for those who believe in the end of the days and judgment day, we should just wait for that day for everyone to be judged. We shouldn't do that here. We don't have the power. Not even the ICC has the power. I don't think they have it. But like I said, I get why people are pissed and they want such laws to happen to take charge. I get that. And I also get why people don't want it. I also get why people feel like they're being oppressed. Because, yes, if someone is telling you, if you're gay, you're not supposed to go out there with a rainbow bracelet or hat or anything. They're basically just pressing who you really are, and they want you to be something different, and that is unacceptable. It's truly unacceptable. So, man, I don't know. Maybe we should just end this here and find another day to talk about it. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in touch with one of my friends to hear what they think about these sooner or later. We'll see. They had really strong opinions about this, and it will be interesting to see if we can get them on the show and hear what they have to say. So thank you very much for listening in. I'm staying your host Ushindi, and if you notice something different about my voice today is I'm down. Yes, my friends know what I mean when I say that. I'm down, my body's down. It's not 100%, but screw it. I'm the Lord. Thank you very much for listening. I am your host Ushindi, and stay safe out there. We sign out.